Semdol ka ke mo fa seda.
Welcome to Talking in Stations broadcast about EVE Online, recorded live on Twitch Saturdays, 1500 Universal Time. I am your host, Matterall from Destructive Influence Corp in NC Dot. Streaming the broadcast is McLeod from The Initiative. EVE Online is a sci-fi computer game played around the clock by people all over the world. Politics, sovereignty, trade, economics, and war have created a 14-year continuum of epic history, all created by the players themselves. Well, it's wartime again in the North and the South and the East. And today we're going to focus on the major conflict in the South between Drone Region Federation and Circle of Two and Vanguard. They are brawling to the bitter end. Let me take that part again. They are brawling to the bitter end, and we'll ask the commanders from both sides who are here. Don't forget, today marks the last weekend of the Alliance tournament. Don't miss it after the show. If you would like to show your support for the show, we greatly appreciate it with follows, subscribes, bits, or tips during the show. If you are listening to this as a podcast, you can contribute through the Patreon/Matterall. And on behalf of the team, I would like to thank you for your continual support. So, okay, let's get on with the show. First, introductions, and we'll just go top to bottom in alphabetical. We'll start with Carneros.
Good morning. I'm Carneros, the CEO of The Bastion.
And today we have, from Triumvirate, Captain Patrick Archer.
That's correct. That's me. I'm lead Tri together with Garst and Warren, and I'm the head FC of EU Time Zone in Tri.
Great. Joining us on the panel today is Dominarch from Clueless Space Nerds.
Hello, I'm Dominarch, like you said, from Clueless Space Nerds, also combat director for MPX in The Bastion.
And from BOPE, we have Fafer.
Hello, I'm Fafer. I'm a military leader for the DRF. I do many things, but it's relevant for this interview.
We'll get to some of the things because you're a very interesting guy. You've done a lot of things and been in a lot of places. All right, so let's actually talk about what's going on in the South, because it's kind of a fluid situation that seems to be changing, but I keep hearing about it and I still don't have, and from various people, don't have my head around like what's actually happening there. So we'll start with Patrick Archer. Can you tell us like what this war is, who this war is between, like who's involved?
Well, there's two steps in that. So you have Circle of Two, who attacked Fithabulis, which is actually XX renters. They're there since the Steinwagen War. I think the first one when you pushed them out of Venetia, and or maybe the second, I can't really remember. Anyway, so they decided CO2 needs more renters and they want a rental region right next to them, as opposed to giving them to Jamico, who live, I don't know, like 10 regions away. So that started like 2 weeks ago, something like that, around the same time. Around the same time, we announced on the Meta Show as Tri and Vanguard that we would reset all of drone regions and like other agreements that we had, because we decided that it was that EVE was boring and we wanted to make sure we weren't a part of that or the reason of the cause. So and then instantly while we were doing that, FCON announced that they were joining the DRF. Which then meant that we were literally living in the center of a massive coalition. So we decided that it was time to strike now or get overrun later, and create very good content in the process. And then CO2 basically hit us up saying, "Yo, we also don't like we also don't like FCON because we had some sort of gentleman's agreement, and they decided to, or their renters decided to impose this impasse." And yeah, then we kind of teamed up situationally or occasionally, and now we're in sort of the same war against FCON. I guess that's the short of it.
So it's Triumvirate versus FCON, and how serious is this?
Well, Tri's announced like a do or die war for us. We've had these fun content wars and deployment things, and we're here for nice fights and all that. But that only gets you so far. Like it's nice, but our PvP is one more. And it is true. Like if we lose this war, we'll probably end up losing a lot more than just good content. So we're in it with everything we've got. We moved everything we have, and we fielded our super capitals already on the second day of the war, something like that. And I think you guys had a video of that as well.
Yeah, we'll play that in a little bit. And it's not unusual for Triumvirate to close down, right? This is not the first time Triumvirate's been around.
No, there's been many iterations, and there's plenty of jokes of Try Again about that too. But this is the same iteration that started, I guess, when Garst Corporation No Mercy joined Try in late 2015, I think. So from then on, it's been basically the same people. Some of the old guard left and decided to do different things. So yeah, it's now just a...
Yeah, but what I liked hearing was this is a legit war. This is like a war to the end. Like you're either going to take out FCON or you're going to be taken out.
Yep.
And you don't see that as much as, right? Like, and you guys can chime in.
It's definitely, I think it's a good thing. Like we've been talking about it a long time, for a couple of months at least internally. Like, what do we want to do, and do we want to do something risky again? And we decided that we want to. And from what the response from Eve, I think we made the right call, because there's quite a few people hitting us up like, "Yo, we want to be a part of what you're doing." So that's interesting. Some are good, some are not, but it's like at least it makes us think that we made the right call here. We'll see how we end up.
Yeah, and Pfeiffer, you're the military director for Drone Region Federation. But can you tell us a little bit before you start about BOPE, your corporation?
Well, it's kind of old corporation, and we kind of had our way through Eve. We disbanded 2009 and then reformed. We kind of disbanded because we were part of Triumvirate, and that incarnation of Triumvirate went down as usual. But me and Endeva and a few people went to Curse, and then we kind of grinded up again to build a corp, and then we ended up in White Noise, PL, NC.dot, and so on.
So you were part of White Noise. You also ended up in Pandemic Legion and Northern Coalition at one point, right?
That's correct, yes.
And now you're on your own in a new alliance called Ghost Legion?
Yeah, basically, I kind of talked with my members, and I observed some trends and tendencies in Eve, and I took this new adventure. So I gracefully exited NC.dot with the approval of a leader, of course, and I took over of some of these Keepstars and Fortizars that are part of this NetC network in the low sec to help defend and maintain it, which is why the Ghost Legion was created. And of course, I also help manage Brothers of Tangra rentals, and I like to whisper to the cats in Droneland.
And one last thing about you.
I kind of see myself as some sort of guardian, the custodian of the Dronelands. I like Dronelands a lot. I have a lot of friends there, and these various aspects of my Eve life makes my life interesting.
You're very modest, Pfeiffer.
I know. One other thing is that you were a CSM member last year, right?
Yes, that's correct. It was a very interesting experience. This year I did not put candidacy. It's too much for me. Maybe I will do it next year if time permits. But at the end of this CSM mandate, I wasn't very much active, and although I could get votes, it's not fair that I push myself when there are more people with more energy to contribute to the CSM.
Well, funny enough, we'll be talking about CSM a little later because it was just announced that Vince Draken is no longer on CSM. He will be replaced by the person who was closest to getting on, and that would be Sort Dragon. And you can find that report on Imperium.news. So we'll get to that in a little bit later. But let's actually go back to now. Who in your eyes, who's involved in this conflict, and what are the goals?
Well, we need to observe this from several perspectives. One perspective is strategic EVE landscape, and there are forces in EVE who are quite happy that currently Triumvirate and CO2 are engaged in the war in the East, giving them, let's say, free hands to deploy to the north. But let's say this is not a big aspect, but it's important to notice. Second thing is we have DRF, which is an entity that is kind of neutral in EVE. DRF goal is simply to exist, to have space empire, to provide rental services, and to occupy the drone lands. Then we have Triumvirate. It's a historical alliance. Their goal currently is to survive. Reason is this was one of the worst summer content-wise. The blogs have been established again, and
it's very quiet this summer.
Yeah, in one way, Triumvirate was very friendly with DRF because after the war, a deal was made for Triumvirate to be a member of DRF, to be ally, and basically to hold the South. For DRF, it has been very good because Triumvirate has served as a buffer, sort of, but also as a valuable ally. And during this period of few years, Triumvirate really burned all the South. And with XX and Solar help, they burnt Steinwagen entities totally. And for Triumvirate, it was also good because they managed to transform themselves to self-holding entity with renters, and they were able to build up significant super capital forces. It's just that when the test arrived with CO2, they kind of lost their southern front, and in general, EVE was very stale, and Triumvirate are PvPers, and they are not very patient people. So for Triumvirate leadership, it's a matter of survival to offer content to people.
By saying that it's a matter of survival for leadership means you have to get your guys interested in the game. Like you have to keep them interested to fight and to do things, to stay together. There's a whole dynamic there. But Captain, what do you think? By the way, what do people call you? Captain Archer or Patrick?
Oh, Patrick's fine.
Yeah. All right. What was going on with the, like, diplomatically, there was a lot of stuff that was going on with logs being revealed, and there seemed to be a lot of big surprises and stuff like that. What was going on, behind the scenes there?
So obviously from all sides, there's always spin involved in that. But it's true. Like I said earlier, we had the discussions within Tri like for a long time, and even like maybe in March or something, I poked Faffer like, yeah, we have this thing, we wanna do more, and like he helped me with valuable input at the time as well, and we ended up deciding differently in the end, but that doesn't really matter. But yeah, we were really talking about it, and then the leaks came out, and I think that's what really freaked out FCON, because they're pretty much the only ones who actually take notice of it, because we discussed, I don't know, going to a wormhole, so in that case, Hardknock should be mad. We discussed going to Delve, Goon should be mad, and like I think we called Fountain shit or something, and like all those people are not mad at us, but FCON for some reason lost it, so they decided to talk with XX and to try and get into DRF. that's a direct response to that. But in over the I think June. No, sorry, it was July. We at the start of July, Garst had a chat with XDeath, who leads XX, obviously, and he said like we want to get rid of our drone land solve. We want to do the reset, but we don't want to do it with like our stuff still in drone lands because it's shit for us and shit for them, because obviously all the renters will freak out when they have neutral soft next door. So we sold it, we transferred some of it, and then at the end we just dropped all the soft that was left to have a good ending of that, because we really don't have any bad feelings towards the DRF. They've been good for us in the last 2 years, and we've had really good fights together. But like it's like with stagnant Eve, I think it's better for more people to not be blue to each other. So we decided to take a first step in that and see who follows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you did reset them. There was a letter of we're going to reset you in a few hours, kind of thing.
Well, that was that was just the general announcement that would be made that we assumed would leak instantly, and it did in seconds. But the first announcement or chat was with XDeath, and at least a month before that.
Oh, okay. So behind the scenes, it was already in motion, or
yeah. You tell the entire month of July, you see soft transfers happening in the Spire and Ethereum Reach, so it's not like it was a surprise. Yo, in an hour or in 2 hours we're gonna reset you, and in 2 days we're gonna shoot you, or something like that.
Were you surprised by the coverage of the, I guess the news? Like, because Ian24 carried a few of these articles.
Oh no, I know what the deal is with that. There's a guy, he's been trying to push the agenda that we're some sort of backstabbers, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, people can think of it what they want. I wasn't really surprised. Like the first article was like, oh, nice, they have an article about us. And the second one, you're like, okay, this is another article about us. And like 4 articles later, you're thinking, are they still unbiased or what's going on here? So at that point, I wasn't really surprised anymore.
Oh, so you think there's an agenda against you guys in that way?
I think that's pretty clear, at least from that website.
All right. So again, the goals for Triumvirate are annihilation of FCON, even though you entertained other possibilities of, how do we keep the guys interested? We can go this way, that way, or the other, but you decided to go after FCON. And how is that going so far?
Well, you have to understand it's just the first week of the war, so everybody's just feeling what each side can do to each other and setting up some stuff, etc. I assume that the next week will be a lot fiercer in fighting, and then afterwards, I assume that a lot more parties will show up, hired by maybe both sides. We'll tell.
Yeah. So let me see if I can untangle this a little bit. Are there 2 separate conflicts going on, or are they all related? Because you have DRF versus CO2. And you have Triumvirate versus FCON.
That's so CO2 basically said like now that FCON or their renters in Toast's impasse, all bets are off. We want them dead, and like that was our objective anyway. So let's see what we can do for each other there. Like I said, I don't really have anything against the DRF, so we're not directly entoasting all of Faith to Bolus, which is actually where the conflict started right now. I don't know. We'll see how things go later on, but yeah, that's basically that side of the conflict, and then the other side is us attacking FCON, and we'll push into their main region soon. We should see some more battle reports in Immensia, like in the next week or so.
Yeah. So how solid is working with CO2? Is it as things are convenient, or is it a coalition forming? What's this? How strong is the bond?
Obviously, we do talk. It's not like they hit us up 5 minutes before a timer. Like if they have something important, they'll tell us, and then like vice versa. But it's not like we have a shared name and a shared logo. It's more opportunity, I guess, what drove us together as allies.
Yeah. So, Faford, does all this sound familiar to you? All the coverage and the leaking that was going on and that kind of stuff? Did any of that catch you by surprise? What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, basically, I wasn't surprised. First thing is, I talked to Patrick a lot. We are kind of still friends, and I try to advise them because I know from my, let's say, other connections that Tri had internal problems, And we discussed a lot of options, what would be best for trying to do. So there were like options, like Patrick said, to go to Wormhole. There was an option to become more nomadic, like NC.dot or PL, although they're not nomadic at the moment. But there is this model where you hold sovereignty in renters and you're free to deploy whenever you like. And this is something that I kind of advised to Patrick to do, to keep the sov. I wanted them to be more related to DRF, let's say to keep Ethereum and Spire, because DRF would be able to protect their land. But in that situation with dried up content and in situation where they had some problems with their ability to deploy, they opted for a kingdom that is neutral to everyone else in the vicinity. And naturally, this is not good for rental business because under this agreement with DRF a few years ago, we had Trio Red Blue. And we don't want even a hint to our renters that they may be farmed. So that was one of the main drivers in DRF posture about all this. And when basically Trio Red exited this agreement, we talked a lot, and although if it's regrettable, we do understand what Trio Red did and why, but we also have our interest, and that is not to have a natural entity farming the renters. So that's why basically we are trying now to rebuild the DRF South, the barrier towards the South, and FCON is our new partner instead of Trio Red. And this is basically what pisses me off, because
is this you pissed off? You sound so calm.
I'm kind of pissed off. I use this, let's say, Americanized term, which can mean a lot of things. I'm not
well, these days,
pissed off that I
yeah.
don't sleep. Yeah, but now basically we have isolated Trio Red, and they of course turned to CO2, who also have their problems. They are constrained in the south. They're pretty good PvPers and strong, but they are weak and isolated.
What do you think is CO2's biggest challenge? What's their biggest what's their most difficult thing to overcome at the moment? What makes Gigas?
They need to balance. They're now under the shield of test temporarily because Goons doesn't like them, and also PenFam doesn't like them. So they're kind of homeless in that sense, the same as Trio Red shows. Since Trio Red is not aligned anymore with DRF, I don't know what Garst and Patrick will do regarding diplomacy. So they're all alone, isolated, and having this philosophy of fighting outnumbered. And they're kind of natural allies at the moment, because CO2 knows that they will be fucked. I will use that word sooner or later. So that's why they merged their Supercap fleet, and it's probably very good for EVE for content. But I'm not happy that, in a sense, Trio Red made the first move. Because if they kind of waited more, if they had more patience, then a recent move by the Goons would provide some more opportunities, maybe. But, you know, this is a game, and they must do what they need to do, as they see fit, as is their right. It's just that sometimes I'm not happy with the outcomes, but I do play my game also, and I have a responsibility to Dragonlance, and basically I know what will happen in the end. Yeah.
That's interesting. Your responsibilities to Dragonlance is to keep your renters stable and feeling like sheep to some other wolves. So you don't want to offer them up, like say maybe Brave, to PL happened a long time ago, where they're like, yeah, we'll defend our structures just to give you guys. Brave will defend their structures to give PL activity as long as you don't take structures. And there seemed to be some kind of backroom deal made that way. And you don't do that sort of thing. Your thing is I provide a service of, renting out giant swaths of drone regions, and I can't even have the appearance of farming them out to Triumvirate who's bored or CO2 who's bored. Like that's the way you're approaching it. Does that make sense? Is that right? Fair to say?
Well, it does. One needs to know that whole this area was once Brothers of Tengra that was founded by PL, and we provided a premier service to everybody, even to our enemies. Even the goons and CFC entities could rent and build supers because they were not allowed to do that in CFC. We rented to Solar alt entities, even if they were attacking us. So the whole point of Dragonlance is to provide a service. You can come with your alt corp, you can farm, and you can have money for your PvP elsewhere and have a better life. without all
the nice brochure.
hassle. Yeah, without all the hassle to defend and to think about having super cap army, etc. But to go back to this situation, CO2 is not in a good situation, and Tri has found themselves not in good situation as a result of this maneuvering.
Well, I'd like to.
So it's kind of
okay. 1 second.
So it's kind of interesting to see them together, and for the EU, that's definitely refreshing because now we have, let's say, one more super cap force in the south, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this will develop. We could have seen some dread bombs today, I think. Nulsechnaya, Sholupen, Dread Bomb, CO2. I think they killed a Titan or few. Is it
a Titan and a super? I think it was a Wyvern too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the way of usage. Smaller entities needs to use their supers as escalation tool, not as primary tool like NC or PL does. Otherwise, they get killed.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that, but like you keep saying we're in a bad place, but I disagree with you. Like everybody's really happy that we're doing this. Like we're in it for content. We've been a part of, I think, the problem for a long time that we're stepping out of now, finally. That we're not gonna stop fighting FCON if obviously XX traditionally brings in a shit ton of mercenaries to outblob the sun, and at some point, yeah, that may be too much, but we'll never stop fighting. Like they'll leave, and we'll keep fighting. You can see the new corp. We're getting some new corps in soon. You can literally look at the dotland the next couple of days and see them come in. So I'd like to say that we're in a really good spot, and actually people notice. Like this is going to be the future. There's no reason that DRF. Yeah, if you can hold drone lands, but I don't think the border needs to be in Fatabulis when you live in Geminate. Like it can be at Innsmouth or Ethereum Reach or whatever.
Yeah. So you're saying they're too big, and you're denying that this is something to bring your guys back to the game. Like you're not in that much trouble.
No. I mean, we've been fighting. Like we've been fighting from Curse for the last 2 months or something. But yeah, now we want to do this. We don't want to have the entire map, the entire East being blue from the north. Like even the DRF is blue to NC and PL Renta. So I really you could say from Tenal to Fatabulis, it's one blue donut. Mm-hmm. And that's not gonna last.
Well, that's an interesting aspect to the conflict. It seems like one group wants stability and growth and consistency for what their model is, which is to rent out areas, and the other group is, we have all these warriors that need to be doing something. But you're saying it wasn't a problem you guys weren't getting necessarily, falling apart or anything like that. Maybe the guys were bored, but your Triumvirate wasn't falling apart. But you're thinking, hey, that's too much of a blue area. You need some, you don't need to rule it all from Gemini, basically.
Exactly. I understand like why you want to have stability for your renters. Like we have our own renters. I fully understand that. And I agree with that. And I think it used to be in the Dronelands until we attacked the Dronelands in the Ethereum Reach and then expanded the border into Innsmouth all the way to Fitabolus. Like we were a part of that. But I think like now we see that's too much. And that, like especially now that FCON joined as well, like it's boring for the game when there's so many entities that could be shooting each other instead of being blue and just crabbing and AFKing from the game.
Yeah. I'd like to take a second to welcome Dirk McGurk, whose power went back on, so he's on. Are you there?
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, glad to have you on. So is there any foreshadowing to what's coming? Are any of these moves preemptive because, say, the moon mining situation is going to change so dramatically? The stations are going to change dramatically. They're going to be, faction Fortizars. Like, is any of this kind of positioning for the next few months?
Or is it completely unrelated to anything CCP is doing to develop the game?
It's not unrelated because CCP made changes to the game, and that changes forces people to act. In case of Triumvirate, they were without content. In case of DRF, it will be a bit for internal reshuffling, but not too much, because I heard from public sources that the moons will be reshuffled, but since we own that, so it doesn't change anything really. What may be interesting is that Alliance.
By the way, I like how you said public sources to differentiate your old CSM contacts with,
Yes, I must be very careful.
Yeah, right. That's funny. Good.
Yeah. So what will be interesting is that in NullSec there will be opportunity for this Alliance mining ops, because people from wormholes will be coming to these moon timers. And in the low sec, I think it will be pretty hard to mine. But in the deep null sec, there will be opportunity to mine the thing. But this is all about economy and finances. If you look from this perspective of empire, of self-holding empire, you need to hold to some sort of resource. Either these are renters that are paying you rent instead of paying a tax to Alliance, or you have some sort of other income. And I think that DRF is very well positioned for these changes, and so are NCNPL, because they have a potential of several revenue streams. And for Tri and CO2, CO2 of course understood that they need more of more of this revenue stream in order to survive, but I don't think it will end well for them. So Triumvirate basically kind of rejected this areas they had in Spire and Ethereum Reach to buckle up in Smatter and partially Detroit to reduce their SOV footprint, and this is basically giving away a lot of resources that they could have had. But we shall see. In the end, the person on the field rating and producing and being part of the economy is a constant in need all the time.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do with all the money? Mm-hmm. What are you going to do with all the money in the world if you have no one to shoot at? That's basically what we asked ourselves.
Well, and it depends. I mean, some people's thrill is the thrill of the chase, the thrill of the catch. It plays on all those instincts of hunting and catching and running away and getting away. Like all that is exhilarating. For some people, it's the collecting of coins and putting in a coffer. I fully agree.
I understand that. There's plenty of people that like that, but that's not our people. So,
well, no, and that's what's interesting. You have two different ways of life kind of colliding. And
yeah, the problem with Eve is if you want to have full experience, your operation lasts 5 to 6 hours. Especially if you're FC, you need to prepare everything, you need to scout, you need to play scouts, signals, and then you need to move shit, and then you execute, and then you return home, and 5 hours has passed. And some people simply cannot play that anymore. There are a lot of, let's say, veterans in Dragonlance, and some are having that kind of play, but these are their PvE outs, so they do have this experience in PL, in NC dot, or in other entities. It's a way of life to have a full experience of combat, but this is for mainly younger people or people that are situated that have a stable life and that can devote such time to the game.
As to the war itself, do you guys have a 6 feet, a key system that you guys are fighting over, or do you both have something different you think is this key system down there, like a 6 VDT, an MTACO, or something like that?
I looked at this systematically like a chessboard. I also like to play chess a lot, and these are just opening shots. And soon the position on the board will crystallize even more, and then you make your own moves.
Yeah, it's exactly as Pfeffer says. There's many things. Obviously, you look at each other's staging systems, and maybe we'll take a pot shot at each other, or they'll take a shot at our staging system. But there's many places everybody can move to. Like in the Age of Citadels, like everybody's been dropping Citadels for a year straight now, so there's so many options to move around in, which gives you a lot of targets as well, which is nice.
I wonder if even that makes sense anymore. There are key systems that need to be controlled in order to control a region, kind of like it used to be. Well,
some make sense because you have better range on one system or the other. So if you push them out of one system, maybe they can't control like a handful of systems to the other side of a region or a region away. But in the end, like they can just move one system over, and Super Caps and Titans can take gates now. Ever since I don't know, is it 3 years now or something? So it's not really that much of an issue anymore.
Well, there's a psychological issue edge to it too. I didn't know if there was something like that for you guys. That I know that in the past there's been systems that when one group's pushed out of it, oh, it's all over, it's done now. I don't know if you guys had something like that for yourselves or not.
I mean, but like I said, we'll keep fighting. Like if we lose our soul, we'll end up in Curse. But Curse happens to be directly in range of FCON, so they're not going to get rid of us that easily.
Yeah, but it's all about economy. You need to have economy and the source of income to wage the war. Missions in Curse can be good. That is a good system. Jitter Show, there are about, I think, 8 level 4 agents in that system. I think Initiative like to be in that system, but it's not enough for a capital and super capital force to be financed only from that source.
Yeah, we have a question from Voltels. How does it work with try-attacking CO2's allies?
Well, well, obviously, FCON, we've all aligned with each other fighting the Steenwagon in the Steenwagon War earlier this year. But afterwards, FCON has helped CO2 and vice versa. But when FCON joined the DRF, they obviously formally sided with the DRF. And when CO2 attacked Fatavolus, the renters over there, FCON immediately joined in. And they had some sort of gentleman's agreement, not really an official NIP. And GigX basically said, yo, you fine, like if you join in Faith, that's fine. But if you hit like our home impasse, like we're gonna strike back. Obviously, within the next couple of days, one of some rogue renters or pets from FCON or even FCON themselves, I can't really remember, hit Mencia while GigX was fighting in Fatavolus. GigX, in true GigX fashion, says all bets are off. I'm coming after your home. So then they weren't really aligned anymore. So we're just attacking FCON, and GigX is also, and CO2 are also attacking FCON.
Right. So great. We're rounding out the first hour. I know you guys are both pressed for time. So is there anything else that you would want to say in like conclusion to this, review of what's going on?
Well, I'm really excited for the times to come. I haven't logged into Eve so much. I don't know, in a couple of months. I think Killaby was on here last week saying the same thing about his war in the north. So I think it's a good development anyway. And thanks to literally everyone involved, even Pfeffer making it all possible, of course.
Well, I don't think it's a service he's offering, but
I mean, we will rent to your Alt-Corps, of course. Just kidding. But seriously, DRF puts a lot into honor and the deals, because we need to do that to have our renters trust. And since EFCON is our member now, we will of course defend them and make sure that they survive and that nothing bad happens to them in the long run. So it will be interesting to see the developments in the south. There will be a lot of maneuvering, a lot of groups will be coming, and it will be nice to have Valhalla, and in my opinion, CO2 and Try are becoming new against all authorities, maybe. So I think many of the entities will find that interesting to monitor and maybe participate later. But for now, it's too early. These are just opening shots. It's been a week, so it's no big deal yet.
Yeah.
I apologize for coming in late. I did have a power outage. I couldn't get here on time, so I'm not sure if it was asked or not. But given the war given whatever the thing that's going on in the north, okay, let's say the war in the north, okay, is that relieving pressure on allowing what's going on down here in the southeast to kind of go on its own pace without honorable third parties?
Well, definitely. I think everybody can understand, with half the game busy in the north, that means those people are not available for either contracts or just like third party and stuff like that. So we'll see how that develops when they do become available in the next month or so.
Yep.
Well, it's just good to know that it's not just the same old players over and over again. And I think when I first saw the SMA and I Want ISK conflict, that was really attractive to me as a writer, because I thought, oh, this is interesting. And EVE, it's not just alliance against alliance or coalition against coalition. In this case, you had what was amounting to a bank or a gambling outfit was at war with a coalition member of a giant, maybe the biggest alliance at the time. And that seemed to be an interesting dynamic. And this seems to be kind of the same thing. You have like a rental empire. I hope that's not a bad way to put it. I don't mean it to be in a bad way, but a place where stability is wanted, and you're making room for people to participate as they can participate, because they're no longer able to just get on, have game time. So as they become veterans, they need a little more control over what they do when they get in. And then you have the PvP side of it wanting to come into conflict with that. And you can't have a service of renting an area and having it attacked because you can't farm those guys out to the PvPers. That's not fair to them, and that looks really bad, and you break trust and all that. At the same time, you have the PvP, like the sharks, that have to swim to survive. They have to keep moving and have to keep active and have to keep interested. So it's an interesting collision.
That's definitely true. But if like the drone regions really want to protect their renters, maybe they should get in touch with Hard Knocks and get them to move out.
Is Hard Knocks actually living there, or are they popping in and out?
They have their supers, right? So they drop supers on the renters all the time.
Yeah, I mean, for a renter that gets dropped by Hard Knocks super, it's probably not nice. But this has no effect on economy at all. It's a small part of the picture. We can't hammer the malls left and right, but statistically we are a stable environment for people. For example, there is one category of people. They have alt corps. They mine and trade those, so they can buy ships to PvP while being in PvP entity. Then there are, let's say, retired entities. For example, there is a historical corp, Celestial Horizons. They built First Titan, but they married. They have kids, life, and all they want is, to have their space and to enjoy communications a bit and hear each other's voices. They're really happy when they undock, even in mining ship. And there are, of course, entities that are true, let's say, Care Bears or miners, and all they do is they want to mine, and that's how they play EVE. As is their right, yes.
And that's good enough for them. It's just the mining or the getting on and socializing with friends.
I think that's even a bigger part of it.
Yeah. Some of them eventually changed the interest as a part of EVE life cycle, some not, but overall I think we made Dragonlance and the ERF a good place in this, let's say, turmoils of war. But we are, of course, very connected, and we will make sure that it stays that way.
Yeah. All right. And it's also, it can't be lost on anyone that the changes that are coming to the game are going to affect drone regions. You stand to benefit pretty well because you have so much space from the moon changes, I imagine.
Yeah, but it is also the geography. If you look at the EVE map, you will see that drone lands are very deep nullsec. There is no adjacent NPC space. Whoever wants to come in deep nullsec needs to travel a lot or needs to use the wormhole. And if they're using wormhole, then it's just snatch and grab. There is no strategic significance in that. And that's why basically the drone lands are much different than the other places. And also that's why they are very hard to conquer, because even if superior forces are attacking, all we need to do is give a Russian winter to the attackers, and very soon they are tired of grinding Fozisov or before grinding all these SBUs, defensive SBUs. So it's like it is, yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's like almost like a suburb, isn't it? It's like
but it's
or
but
like
all people from the city, dream how they will buy a house in the countryside, right? And remove themselves from a large city.
My little Italian villa out there where I can grow some grapes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that. I'm probably at that age. Should have been a long time ago to play in a more controlled way and stuff. But well, cool. Thanks, guys, for coming and explaining it. If you can stay, of course. If you have to leave, thanks for showing up and getting us some information on what's going on there. And again, it's really neat to see. It's an interesting war, but it's neat to see that it's not everybody's in the same place in EVE, or even plays the same way in EVE. So
exactly.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll try and stay around for like 5 more minutes, I guess, until I really have to go.
Sure, stay in channel until you have to bail, and it's fine. All right, let's get on to some game news, and we'll bring in our panel, talk about what's going on out there. Clearly, Alliance tournament is going on this weekend and next weekend. We won't talk about that because that'll be obsolete by Monday.
No, that's the final weekend, but
that's it. I'm sorry, I meant today and tomorrow.
Yeah,
but that'll be over. And by the time this podcast comes out, let's talk about the economic report. The monthly economic report came out. Was there anything interesting in that anybody saw?
I don't know that there was any. Well, I only got a chance to glance at it, but I mean, obviously, when you look at the Delve numbers, still rolling strong out there, both in terms of bounties, and I mean, one of them cleared 10 trillion, didn't it? And I forget which number it was at this point, whether it was the mining or whether it was the bounties.
I think it was the mining, because bounties were down a little bit overall. I'll double check that while you.
Yeah, I think that's correct. So they're in the month of July. they kicked it into a slightly higher gear.
Is that possible?
Before going off to war? And in spite of, in spite of the changes, right, that took place to Rorquals and the mining anomalies. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's supposed to get nerfed a bit, but maybe you can see a reflection of what's going on, because as the war started, you could see, these giant mining ships, the Rorquals, getting by one person, 20 at a time getting killed, or 18. Maybe that's not.
I like the fact that Delve outproduced Jita.
Yeah, sorry, but Carneros, you said something about mining.
That's not reflected in this report, though, because
No, but
this was before that.
You're right, but I'm saying, like, if that's what's going on there, maybe they're just constantly ramping up the, like, it's not like, oh, we have 100 people using Rorquals in this area. Maybe now it's 120, and this time it's 160. So it's growing, basically, and even the nerfs have brought it down, but not necessarily enough. And they outproduced Jita. Is that what you were saying, Dominark?
Delve, the Forge outproduced. Delve outproduced the Forge. Didn't outsell, but outproduced.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's civilization, isn't it?
It's civilization.
It is. It's like a little, Babylon. It's growing.
I'd like to be able to say that I took part in that, but I did not.
Well, you're part of the Bastion.
Well, on the construction side of it, I'm over in that column.
Yeah. One thing I noticed was that there's a lot of importing going on, and I've been looking at information, and there's not a lot of export. So whatever's going on in Delve is kind of staying in Delve, and that might be the production economy that you're seeing, why it's overproducing even Jita, the biggest economy in EVE. I guess no longer, as far as production goes.
Well, overproducing the Forge, which would be the area surrounding Jita, obviously, but I don't know how much actual production is going on in Jita itself, but.
Right, so that kind of puts typhoons that are getting blasted in that the Imperium is involved in perspective, doesn't it? It just seems like it's dropping the bucket.
Yeah, if there's a spike in the next thing in Lone Trek, that part of that would be like Imperium forces building more typhoons in situ there in Hakonnen. It's possible. They might be.
To move the production up there closer to where they are?
It would make sense. And there's enough structures stuck up all over the place now. And the place it's too, like, complicated, all the layers of stuff going on now to be tracking everything.
Yeah.
I think the next economic report will be a lot more interesting.
Yep.
Delve should come way down. Not because we're donating 10 Rorquals to Bob, the god of wormholes, every day, but because and a lot of hardcore people are just focused on other stuff right now.
Yeah,
it should be interesting.
Or it'll stay high, and it'll just show you exactly how many alts are operating.
Exactly. Like how many people stayed behind, or how many?
No one stayed behind.
What Imperium's doing on their off time.
Yes, but yet even when we do form alt fleets, sometimes down there, if you called a fleet right now and said hostile Titan tackled in 1 DQ, you would fill 3 fleets like that, and probably more.
Maybe jump cloning a lot.
So,
yeah.
And people, I suppose, have multiple accounts. Maybe not so much in Imperium. I was surprised how few people use multiple accounts when I got those statistics a few years ago.
Same here. I thought it was everybody had at least 3.
Well, okay, but again, when you look at the entirety of the game, right? That may be the case, even though I think some of their stuff is a little bit flawed, in there trying to determine, linked accounts sometimes. But there's a lot of single account players out there. They just don't really exist the same way, I don't think, in nullsec.
No, I think they're mostly in like the newer groups. I think they mostly run one account.
Right. Well, that's why I said maybe the Imperium's different. Also, I don't know how it's correlated because they don't actually tell you, but I think it seemed to paint the picture a few years ago when I got these stats that the majority of the players were in high sec and the majority of the players had one account. Did those two things go together? Not necessarily, but it does kind of point to EVE having a very young player base, and young meaning they've only played EVE for the last 2-3 years. And they're building themselves up, and so the veterans are actually a smaller slice than it seems like, because we talk in the media, we communicate with each other through all kinds of social stuff. So it seems like there's a lot more of us than there actually are. It's a new world.
I'm not even sure now that if they were to put that statistic out, how valid it would be now. With the introduction of alphas, with stuff like the whole skill farming thing and everything.
Oh yeah, they totally can't put it out anymore. So I got it from CCP Rise right before alphas were announced, and that was basically the last time you can really look at the game that way, because now it's just all mixed up with skills and stuff. All right, the other thing is there's a huge Plex price drop because there's a sale. So anytime there's a sale, obviously Plex becomes easier to buy with cash. And you buy it, and then you sell it off to get that money in the game. And so there's a huge sell-off, right? And so that
looks at that as a legitimate way to put some downward pressure on the in-game Plex price without crossing the lines that they feel like they shouldn't cross in indirectly manipulating the market.
Right. So when they say we as CCP don't put our fingers in the market, they're being accurate, but when they say it's $25 off Plex, they can still put that downward pressure on without touching the market itself.
They mostly don't touch it, and they, in their internal dialogue and the way they view the world, they're not touching it. But there are some gray areas on the edge.
They don't put their fingers in it; they put their heel on it.
They'll have to do it maybe at some point, because if this shit keeps going up, I don't know if it's good for the game. I think more people will quit if the people that are paying for it with ISK instead of cash.
Yeah, that's always lurking. Is it's getting too expensive for people to Plex their account in the game. It takes too many hours to earn that amount of Plex in order to buy the game time. So I'm just going to drop out. And that's always kind of a fear, I guess, if Plex gets too nutty, too high. So this might be a way of CCP's throwing some, and there was kind of an effort, by the way, let me finish a sentence, throwing a fire extinguisher on that kind of fire. I always do that. I go on to the next thought before I finish my last one, and I really apologize for that.
I think a famous politician in America does that too.
Well, I don't know if that's a favorable comparison.
Sorry.
All right, so the other news that we wanted to get to is the CSM changes that just happened.
The CSM bombshell that got
boom.
dropped today.
Yeah, what happened there?
Apparently, Vince Draken from NC Dot was not participating enough, and was removed for lack of participation.
Does anybody know? Was it Vince? Did he go to them, or do they decide?
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah, it's usually both kind of thing. I don't think it's like a shock to anyone. He has a real life and it's busy, and so he doesn't show up. I think that it's not going to be a surprise that they say, hey, you need to show up more, and he would probably say like, I can't. Maybe I should give up this seat. That kind of stuff.
Well, he's active in game quite a lot right now. You see him on a lot of kill mails, and he's around. So he's definitely doing stuff. And maybe he just lost interest. Maybe he thought he could do more quicker or something like that. I
think it comes from before the war. Super active right now. Leading fleets at 4 a.m. for him. It's probably not that though. Because building, I think it's fair to say. At least that was the complaints. I don't know if I should call them complaints, but that was the word on the street, was that everybody's showing up except Vince on these calls and that sort of thing.
We'll see if Sword Dragon gets the spot now. He he liked to do it in the past. I think he did a good job in the past anyway, so I think it's good.
Yeah, we'll start some trouble here. But Sword Dragon, I think it was Shintan or somebody. There was other former members. Anyone but Sort. So who knows how that's going to work out?
Oh, really?
Yeah, the harmony's still going to be there.
The resistance.
Yeah, all the
Oh,
good. Yeah,
really?
No, I see.
Backup Jintan.
I pinned it.
Oh my god, that's awesome. That's great because I know why.
I'm pinning it on Jin. I think it was him. It was somebody who's in Talking in Stations a lot. Saying, but whatever. He's the guy that was the cutoff point. So he's in Sword Dragon. If not him, it would be Killer B or this other person from Horde. So we'll see if he accepts the position and that sort of thing. He's been on it before, so.
Eric's is saying out there, no one should get the slot. The chair should remain empty. If this had happened later in the term, they probably wouldn't replace. But because it's coming at, I think we're still just shy. We're still shy of kind of the midpoint of the term. So I think it is right that they fill the seat. And I think that we should all be glad in a way of what's happening here, because it's showing that the process is working appropriately, that they've determined that there was, look, it's not just about somebody not showing up some of the time or whatever. I mean, for it to come to this, it generally means that there was a really low level of participation by one of these individuals. And it's good to see that it's being dealt with in what seems to be a timely manner, and that there's a mechanism in place, because there were times in the past where it was just allowed to linger and linger and linger for too long, and nothing was done with it. So here they're dealing with it, and it looks like the mechanisms are working properly.
The fact that it was recognized is a good sign.
Yep.
That means that people are involved on both sides. That's a good thing.
Well, in the past, you've had failures of recognition where people would essentially not show up to use their seat to give feedback to CCP, and really just they kind of went on for 2 years, or went on for a year that way. Actually, the terms used to be 6 months, then they were a year. Is that right?
Yep.
I think it's be shorter terms.
Real quick, I got to run. I'm already late. Just noticed. Thanks for having me, and maybe.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Anytime, buddy. Thanks. All right, so I guess we can move on to. Is there anything else in Eve that
do we want to talk about John Dree's?
We'll get to that after we at the end there, after we talk about your meetup. But Valkyrie is back in the news because it is now available without goggles. I guess that makes it easier. It makes it easy to play.
A non-VR version of Valkyrie is going to be coming out, so you'll be able to play it on your PlayStation or your PC, without the VR side of things.
Sans goggles.
And what they were saying we had our monthly Eve player meetup this week, and we were talking about the Valkyrie thing. And what they were saying is, you can have matches with people participating with and without the VR headset in the same match. And we don't know if that's going to be an advantage to one side or another. And how are you going to replace the thing about turning your head,
Right, because targeting works with your eyesight when you have virtual reality on. And so it's much quicker than probably using your mouse, much more accurate.
They still have the IR trackers. A lot of people use those for like War Thunder. All you need is a camera. Yeah.
It tracks your eyes. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
It's
well, I mean, look, it's not like we haven't had kind of, first-person view, fighter type games out there for years, right? So it obviously won't be as immersive. Maybe there will be some things that somebody without the VR can't quite do the same, but I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how it works out, but it certainly opens it up to a much broader range of players now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, with Oculus Rift getting bought out by crap book, and the other ones all being super expensive, this gives it. I didn't get one because of that. So now it gives me a chance to play Valkyrie.
Yeah, I didn't get VR because I was afraid there's something that happens to very few people, but if it hits you wrong, you're dizzy for like a few days or something. That scared me off of VR. Like, I don't want to be dizzy.
I'm dizzy all the time anyway, so it doesn't matter.
They'll probably stabilize you, right?
They probably will.
So what is it? It's so the 26th of September is when Warzone's coming, and that functionality will come to it, right? So it's not that far away. I mean, yeah.
There's a couple other games that are going on, by the way, and this is sacrilege to talk about other games when you're talking about EVE players, but it is interesting that there's other MMOs that are coming out. One of them is Albion, and that one I think has a former CCP dev on it. CCP Grayscale went to work for this company, and
Albion is EVE Online set in medieval times.
Right, and it looks like, League of Legends or Dota, right? Like the little cartoon characters and stuff like that.
Yeah, it has that look to it, but it doesn't play like those. It's an open world also.
Right. Yeah, it just has that look. I meant that aesthetically.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about it is, for me, is that you can play it, and you can play it on your computer. You can play it on your Linux computer. You can play it on your iPad, and you're all in the same world and interacting with one another. I think that's overdue. I was waiting for somebody to do that. In fact, I thought Bethesda's Morrowind did that. So I bought it for PS4 and I bought it for the PC, and that way I could play on my PC and my son could play on the PS4, and we could actually exist in the same world and run around together. Turns out when they said multi-platform, they meant something else. So I was screwed.
They put it out on multi-platforms. They did not.
They did not integrate.
Right, yeah.
So you cannot exist together in the same place. But this time you can. So he can be on an iPad and I can be on my computer, and I don't have to buy him a gaming machine, for instance, that sort of thing. So I thought that was that's a neat approach, especially for that kind of game.
The companies that control the consoles, we call them first party. So PlayStation and Microsoft, the Sony and Microsoft, they don't allow that. They won't allow the mixing. So I guarantee you at some point in the development process, they had to go and put code in there to separate them, so it didn't happen.
We should tell people that you are in the gaming industry as a producer of EverQuest.
And I'm working on a console game at the moment, and it currently runs on Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and PC, and you can mix them at the moment, but at some point in the future we'll be required to follow their rules and separate them. It's a bummer.
Do they say why
PC
they want
players have such an advantage over the consoles? Is that why? Or is it just money?
No, they have some reasons, and some of it has to do with legal liability and control issues. They want to be sure that they want to protect the customer experience of their customers, and they want to protect it from people who are not their customers, and they need to have some leverage and control over the latter to protect the former, and that's hard to do. And if there are some workarounds for it, let's say you were going to mix Xbox One and PC only. Well, you could require all of the PC players to also be signed up on a Microsoft service, because they do a lot of PC stuff, obviously, and then they could control you through that to be able to not speak in chat, for example, if you've been saying bad things. There's some, but it's a pain in the ass
to be able to enforce the EULA rules on multi-platforms. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Well, another game
and they don't want to play with Sony particularly.
Why are they cheaters? They have more cheat codes?
No, they just don't see themselves as teaming up well. Put it that way. They're competitors.
Yeah, right. Okay, another game that's out there that's really interesting is Warframe. I guess that's made a comeback. It seems to be played a lot on INN Twitch. It just looks really cool. It's like a first-person shooter, but sci-fi, and just I don't know, looks pretty fun. Apparently, it was a fun game that people played before. For something.
Did they revamp it, or is it like a Warframe 2?
I think it's revamped. It's the same Warframe name.
It's the same Warframe, but they keep improving it and putting out new content and new Warframes. A Warframe is a combination of a fancy outfit you wear, but it also changes your gameplay. So it's like a mini class, in the same way that changing your ship basically changes your class in Eve. Each ship plays differently. So each Warframe plays differently also, and they keep putting out new content and improving it. It didn't get a big fancy splash when it came out, but it's got a very loyal audience and it makes money, and it gets a lot of playtime on Twitch and various things. It's a good game. It's not one of my games, but it's a good game.
Yeah, I don't play it. I only play Eve, but it is interesting. And that's funny. When I asked, I think it's Apple Pear, I was like, "Do you play any other games?" And he goes, "I don't play games. I play Eve."
That fits.
Okay, Serious European, you're right. It isn't a game. It's definitely a lifestyle.
So you didn't mention the other game that's hot right now.
PUBG.
Well,
and I was going to bring that, although I find it a little bit weird, we're like talking about these other games at the moment, but I wanted to, because that is one of the ones that I hear a lot of people talking about, playing and things like that. And I kind of wanted to ask Carneros, are you guys seeing any degradation in like King of the Kill, because of this PUBG?
It's very interesting.
Sorry, I don't know what PUBG is.
Player Unknown Battlegrounds. PUBG is why they call it PUBG. And it's related to a game made by my company that I don't directly work on, but I know something about, called H1Z1. And there are a couple of others in this genre. This category is not saturated. It's crazy. There's a lot of demand for it at the moment. I don't know how long it will last, but every participant in the category is doing really well right now. And it doesn't seem, I can't see any blip in our numbers if they do something on their game. I did on like the first couple days they launched, but then it doesn't seem to do anything. What does affect our numbers are things like, we released a new crate, or we released some new gameplay change, and then things spike again. But it's not the competitors.
But it doesn't seem like when it goes full launch, it'll change anything anyway. I mean, it looks like it's going to have the numbers it has now when it goes full launch, right? I mean, I don't see this number spiking once you go full launch.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say both of them are going to spike when they release their console versions.
Oh, console version. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
So
will those be cross-platform? H1Z1? Will it be?
I think it's public knowledge that both PUBG and H1Z1 are working on console versions. I'm not sure. I don't really.
I hope it's public knowledge.
I know PUBG has announced it, that they're going to try to be.
Don't get Carneros in trouble now.
In my company, I am not an authorized spokesperson for any products I don't work on. So.
The other so PUBG, I see people playing it in Discord. I just never knew what it was. It looks like H1Z1.
I'm on PUBG. I love it. It's fun.
Yeah, it looks like a scrappy first-person shooter type thing.
The quick match, kind of like H1Z1's King of the Hill. The quick matches, over fast, lots of action. I got sick of H1Z1 because the map is too small for me. In my opinion, it isn't small, but it feels small. And then when it first came out, H1Z1 irritated me because it was wolves and bears, not zombies.
Yeah. Right. And it's funny, Eve players have always, we're talking about other games, but Eve players have always gravitated towards something else too. Like they play Eve, but they'll also play World of Tanks. I remember when that was huge for Eve players.
Gotta have a distraction.
Yeah, World of Warships. I mean, there's a lot of waiting in Eve, and so you have these little quick action things, and then you get back on the the main course and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, especially I want to say for the kind of Eve hardcore class, right? Eve is like a home base, and these other games are just different because it's like Eve goes on forever, right? Whether you're in it, whether you're not in it, at the moment, it's like it continues to go on, and and there are times of slowdown where, well, I don't want to go rat or I don't want to go mine, so I'm going to go play this other game, But guess what? A fleet ping just came up. Now I can get out of this other game and I can come back to Eve.
That's one of the draws for me with PUBG. It's quick. If I get a ping, I can leave it easily without being super invested in something else where I feel like I can't leave it quickly. That's one of the reasons I choose those kind of games.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's very common.
But in September, my new one will be Valkyrie.
That's right. Valkyrie will be something you can, and that's one of the things. Bring up a great point, accidentally or not, that I remember when Dust came out. It was being talked about, and nobody knew it was going to be on PlayStation only. So they were excited they would be able to play first-person shooter Eve action while they waited for a fleet. And then when they announced it, I remember being I was in at Hawkersea Alliance at the time. Everybody deflated when they're like, "Oh, well, I'm not getting a PS3 to play it, and I can't play it while I'm waiting for something to happen on Eve because I have to, move over to my TV." So that might have made money, but it was kind of a miscalculation on the fans' part. So Valkyrie being something you can play, while you have Eve running is going to be interesting to see.
That wasn't a miscalculation on the fans' part. That was a miscalculation on CCP's part.
Agreed.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
on the PC.
On CCP's part for the fans, they might have made money. But
supposedly, and again, not having the insight, the internal insight and whatnot.
Perneros does.
I think it had been mentioned that they didn't want to cannibalize the Eve player base, for that, except for the fact that we said it back at the time, and we say it now. Eve players play other games as well. Why not allow them to, more easily play your other games?
Yeah, why not tap into that market? I don't know. It made no sense. It was such a great idea on paper, I'm sure. I'm sure it looked great. It was probably really smart. All the numbers probably added up with the accountants and whatever. It just didn't work. To me, it is a no-brainer. Not going on a PC was an absolute doomed it from the start.
Well, to be fair, Valkyrie started out on just a couple platforms exclusively. Well, because it was VR, so that's different. But now it did survive long enough to make it to the desktop. And I wonder why Dust didn't survive long enough to make it to the desktop. Maybe it was.
Well, they launched it on an obsolete machine too. They launched it on PlayStation 3 when PlayStation 4 was already announced.
Right, don't you think they actually stabilized it to a point at some point? They were like, okay, let's just put this on as an. Maybe it just didn't have. Because at some point it started. Here I go again, cutting myself off, not finishing my concepts. But Dust 514 launched on PS3, and it didn't get a great response. It was free, still didn't get a great response. It did stabilize at one point where they were in the black. They weren't losing money, or at least that was the rumor. Couldn't they at that point have moved it to the desktop for Eve players?
I wish they would. Well, it wasn't at Legion. They were talking like they wanted to, but I don't know. Maybe it's harder than it sounds. I don't know.
Well, that might have actually cannibalized Eve players because you were actually in the same universe. So now you're either, I don't know, maybe that would have been a little bit different.
I loved the fact that they were going to be the same universe. I thought that was such a great idea. And maybe it would, it might be that was one of the reasons it failed,
Yeah.
I remember sitting at that, I remember being at that Eve Fan Fest where, and going to the charity dinner the night before and sitting at the same table with CCP Rouge and him having to, him saying a few words about, tomorrow we're going to get up and talk about my stuff. Yeah. And he had to get up at one point and go walk away to go rehearse something and then come back. And then the next day was the Rouge wedding.
Did he know it was coming?
He was stressed. Poor guy.
But but I tell you what, now that Valkyrie is going to be coming out, to a broader audience, right? I'm surprised that we haven't, heard yet, more of that speculation of, oh, geez, well, maybe they'll be able to use, this new version of Valkyrie, and they'll port it so that now we can fly fighters off of carriers and super carriers and Eve.
I brought in friend of the show, Killer B, so he's joining us now.
Yay!
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, man. The last thing I want to talk about, and then we'll talk to Killer B about. Actually, you can join in, buddy. But I wanted to talk about another game called Citadel. Have you guys seen that?
Haven't. No. Can you Google it? Citadel.
Is that where you run around reinforcing citadels?
No.
I
Forged with Fire. Yeah, Citadel Forged with Fire. Is that what it's called?
I think that's what it's called. Yeah, and it's something I've seen on INN. And it's just it looks like an open world MMO. It's basically looks like I don't know, Dungeons and Dragons meets what was it?
Skyrim.
Evolution. It kind of looks like Skyrim, but it's not nearly as beautiful. Now, what are the survival games? What was the first survival game? Evolution or something? I forget. Somebody will write it in the comments. But anyway, it looks like the Conan survival game mixed with magic and wizardry and stuff like that. So it looks fun, and it looks like it's getting played a little bit. But hey, let's not waste time. We have Killer B in here. What's going on with you?
I don't know. I'm just waiting until I have to leave for work again, so I'm just trying to fill the time. But nothing much. I just watched the show, listened to Fafer and Archer talk. Interesting standpoints for sure. And now I'm just listening a little bit. I watched AT a bit. I just wanted to see NC win. Now, I'm just chilling.
Oh, cool.
Not much going on in the north at the moment. There's no timers. Goons haven't really done anything. So we're just waiting. And
well, is it fair to say that they tricked you guys? They tricked us. Like, it seemed to me they were kind of pushing, and then they moved out of the way, and one of those kinds of tricks, because you'd killed 4 Fortizars in a row. Or no, it was 3, and then on the 4th one, they didn't show up to fight, or they showed up and then they took off, and they killed 2 of NCPL Fortizars.
Yeah. I mean, we knew obviously that those NC Forts were coming out at the same time, and we just had to make a choice. But for us, it was more important to not have them have a Fortizar and a Conan than the 2 Fortizars over there in Placid. But that's obviously well played by them. Just getting it was a mistake on our part letting those Fortizars over in Placid go to final time in the first place. So that was well played. And then we had to make a choice. They basically forced us to make a choice, and we decided that we think it's more important to kill a Conan Fortizars than it is to save stuff in Placid. So now they killed some over there. That's okay. That's good for them. But apart from that, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, apart from that, nothing much has happened. And there's it's weekend. I'm actually really happy because I have to work tonight. I'm really happy there's no big timers or anything like that, because
you're not missing anything.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like I'm pretty sure there's going to be another big push. Tests have now reclaimed their ancestral homeland of TVN, or at least the station in there. So I'm pretty sure Test is going to claim victory soon and then move south to. I don't know if Archer and Fafer talked about that earlier, but Test is probably going to go south and then side with Tri, I would assume, and CO2.
Yeah.
And just going to team up with them against the Russians and DEFCON. So I'm pretty sure that's going to happen rather soon. And then, well, it's basically Goons left up north, and I'm really interested to see what they're going to do next.
Well, it seems like PL and NC have strong ties to Drone Federation because Fafer's relationship with both NC and PL.
So Fafer's relationship with PL has ended, I think, 1.5 years ago when he left with his corp. We don't really have any ties with him anymore. In fact, there's a couple people in PL that are really trying to avoid him, because sometimes he's a very interesting guy, but it's sometimes really hard to deal with him, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really have ties with Fafer and his club, but obviously we have been working a lot in the past with XIX. And so there's obviously some I don't really know. I wouldn't. We don't have any agreements with XX. Like PL doesn't. I can't talk for NC Dot, but PL doesn't have any agreements with XIX or with FIFA or anything like that. But yeah, like I don't know if I'm not sure which side I would choose if I had to make a decision. At the end of the day, I feel like I have a feeling that both sides are gonna offer us some money. Maybe, and then eventually we're probably just going to go with whoever gives us more money.
Because you guys are a high-end mercenary group at heart.
Well, I mean, yes. I wouldn't really classify us as a mercenary group anymore, but we do get hired to do stuff because we are really good at it usually, right? Like we're not like Mercenary Coalition where we basically have it in our name. But if people want to hire us and be like, hey, here, PL, take this money and can you go do this for us? Then yeah, sure, why not, right? It's a pretty legit source of income.
So it's not your main income, it's just one of many avenues.
Exactly. One of many sources.
Got to give a shout out to Wolfglen coming through large again. Came through large last night on Open Comms. It came through large again today for 50.
Yeah, I think he follows you
donated
around.
$50?
Yeah, like every week for the
guy.
last 4 or 5 weeks, he's been a huge donor, and thanks to him,
Build a monument to him on the show here.
That's great. Yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
It's super generous, super generous.
I'm gonna AWOX his ass.
No, don't do that. I Wolfglen.
He needs to start watching my show. Give me money.
I suspect that it follows Dirk around because.
I don't know about that, but
it did come late in the show, so that's great.
Wolfglen appreciates quality programs. That's why.
That's true.
You're talking about what PL might do and and whatnot out there, what NC Dot might do, and the relationships. The relationships out there with the drone regions. I mean, in some ways it's kind of incestuous, right? Because the goons also have relationships out there, and I mean it's there's a lot of the big names that are involved with one another and have been in different ways over the years on both sides. Yeah, I mean, you go back to the Russian Civil War and how they were kind of split up, and other things over the years.
It goes back pretty far, but even recently, Lady Scarlet, an influence peddler, helped put Pfeiffer in office, and she helped put Vince in office, and so, and by office I mean CSM. So, there is ties there. There, at least in NC and DRF, there's ties, although they're not public. I don't really know the nature of them myself. But it'd be interesting now that Test is getting involved with CO2 and Triumvirate. That's a pretty strong force. That's a pretty meaningful coalition there.
Yeah, that's why, like, if you would have asked me like a couple months ago, I probably would have told you I'd rather side with Tri, and because I personally. If I had to choose between Tri and FCON, I'd pick Tri, right? Like, so I'd rather work with Tri. But then again, right now, looking at Test CO2 and Tri, and also Lumpy is going to go down there this weekend as well and join in.
I knew it. I tried to get him on the show.
So that's basically, another party. I feel like they have the bigger blob in terms of they have obviously cap superiority, unless. And I mean, I've personally never seen this since I've been actively involved in EVE politics, but it has happened in like ancient history that XIX actually deployed their supers as well, and that's a pretty big super force as well if they actually want to. But I haven't seen that happen in my time. Let's put it that way. So unless XX does that, Tri, CO2, and Test obviously have cap superiority because that's a big fleet they have between the three of them. And then subcap wise, with Test joining in and with Lumpy, I'm pretty sure they're going to be more than FCON and DRF as well, subcap wise. So I'm pretty sure they're just going to roll over them at that point. But Favor said it's just opening shots, and I actually really liked his statement on that part because it is true. Like 1 week into some sort of a war like that, you can't really make any predictions, because you never know which side is gonna pull what resources, especially when the thing in the north is over and the groups involved in the north get freed up. With this, like we can basically NC will be freed up, PL will be freed up. That's obviously a big force, and then that might shift. So I'm just looking forward to it. I'm really liking that there's 2 conflicts going on in EVE. This is great.
Yeah, two major conflicts.
Hmm.
As for you, this was something that is very specific to you. You've actually what people dream of, which is take out an entire fleet yourself a couple times. How do you do that?
Well, I mean, it's
Or wait, I guess you can't tell us your tactic, but can you describe what it is?
yeah, it's really mostly luck, and then the enemy screwing up, right? Like there's not that much skill in myself involved. I guess the biggest part is having the balls to actually pull it off. Jumping in one Titan into like 200 subcaps. But all the haters in Twitch chat are just gonna shout, "But you're doing it under the NCPL Supercap umbrella," and that is true. I mean, I do it under the NCPL Supercap umbrella. I did do it with a levy in Quarius on the other end of the map, and I bosuned one Macarial fleet, and I bosuned another fleet the next day, and I died in that Titan, right? So it is much easier to do it with having the entire NCPL Supercap fleet in Ranger U. Than it is doing it somewhere on your own, which is what I did. I did it. I did it twice, and then I died. So it wasn't really worth it. That levy is gone.
So bosoning, you basically position yourself in the right way, and as the fleet arrives, you unleash the Doomsday device, and you're able to wipe out huge numbers of smaller ships.
Yeah, basically even bigger, like the well-tanked armor battleships can tank 2 bosons, and that's it. You don't need you can wipe out any subcap with basically you can kill any subcap with 1 boson that isn't a battleship, an armor battleship. And for those armor battleships like Macarials, really well-tanked Macarials, you need 2 bosons, and that's it. You will just wipe the rest. And you can do it on a gate when they land, although I hate that strategy because lots of them will just jump the gate and be gone. You can also do it by trying to drag bubble them, which is also not that easy to pull off because they will see your Dictor on the outgate and warp to a purge or something. I personally like doing it when they purge themselves, so they need to be distracted. Bosoning a fleet when they're just trying to get home is really hard because they will be focused on just getting home, and they will be watching out for bosoning Titans or PL Olsen local and stuff like that. But it's really much easier to boson a fleet when they're busy fighting, for example, or if they have like an enemy fleet on grid, or if they just killed someone and then they're like distracted from the fight. And that's when you can strike really well because they won't see you coming until it's too late for most part.
Yeah.
But now goons don't travel to tribute anymore, so that's kind of sad.
And it is true. It's not just that you're under the NC umbrella, but you're someone that can actually call them in.
Yeah, that's true as well, of course, yeah.
Like, not everybody can do this. A line member would get yelled at, or might even be sacrificed if they screwed it up.
Yeah, and I also have access to a lot of intelligence that the average line member doesn't have access to. So I'm really confident and doing that kind of stuff because I know, all right, well, is there any danger for me right now? And I see it triggered someone by saying goons don't trip. That feels pretty good. Yes, I did trigger someone there by saying goons don't travel to tribute, but that's what I did it for. That's what I did it for. Right. No, but yeah. So obviously, it's a lot easier for me to do than it is for anyone else that doesn't have access to this intelligence network that I have access to, and also being able to just ping for supers and titans. I can do it in NC, I can do it in PL. I can actually ping both those super fleets, and most of NC will join my fleets as well because they do trust me. So it's like I feel pretty confident when I do it. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Not with the Vanquisher, anyways. I have an avatar as well for the spicy fights. When I don't feel comfortable jumping the Vanquisher, I just use my avatar.
I didn't know you did it in the Vanquisher. You did it in the Vanquisher. Wow.
No, I just did it with Cormac. Yeah.
Wild. Well,
I'm trying to get the 999 kill marks on Cormac. So.
Oh, see if you make it. We'll report on it if it does. Well, okay, cool. So thanks for some insight on what's going on up there and stuff like that. Is there? We need to now get to wrap up the show. We're a little bit over, which is good. We started a little bit late, but do we need to talk about anything else before we move on to the closing? And by closing, I mean the annual Midwest meetup and the Campfire Challenge? Nope. All right. 4th annual Midwest meetup. What can you tell us about that?
It's next weekend, August 25th and 26th. Friday night, we meet at a local bar in Des Moines, Iowa. Well, it's actually Urbandale, Iowa, but Des Moines, Iowa area. We stay there till close, which is not Minnesota, so it doesn't close at 1. Usually ends up being a pretty late night, have a good time. We drink a little bit, talk, bullshit, we drink, and then we drink, and then we start getting rowdy. Saturday, we'll be meeting at a place called El Bait Shop / High Life Lounge. It's 2 bars / restaurants that are hooked together. One has over 200 beers on tap and then like another 100 in bottles. The other one is like a 70s themed place, which is kind of fun. It's no beer made after 1980. And then it's
wow,
bowling alley food type stuff. It's kind of a fun place. Then after that, we'll all go back to the studio and we'll.
What'd you say? No beer made after 1980?
Yeah, no new beers like.
So it's all Pabst Blue Ribbon and Schlitz.
Ham, Schlitz, Blatz, Grain Belt, shit like that. Yeah, that's what they sell there. Now the other side of the bar has, like I said, has over 200 beers on tap. So it's but the one has the best roasted chicken in all of Des Moines. So it's good. We go back to the studio. All of us do. We set up a circle of chairs with a microphone in the middle, and we all just kind of bullshit and have a good time on stream.
So you record the aftermath.
Oh yeah, and then after that we have the drunk chunk show, which is even stranger.
Maybe you shouldn't describe that.
It's even stranger. That is the best way to put it.
We'll take it out. So that is what's the date on that again? If you're
August 25th and 26th, Des Moines, Iowa.
All right, cool. All right, last thing is the Campfire Challenge is John Dries, who's a videographer in EVE, has put together, and it really is kind of call out for people to do stories. You can see more information on that on EVE News 24. It's called Watch This John Dries Campfire Challenge. And it's pretty cool because he focuses on story, which is something that we like to focus on too.
And basically it's all the programs or things you need are free online. You don't have to spend any money to make these videos or to edit them. And if you ever watch John Dries' videos, he does a really good job on his videos. So it's kind of interesting. I like his concept that he's doing it in a style of like America's Got Talent or whatever, where they're going to rate them, vote them, you move on, and then they'll give you feedback on what they think you should change or tweak. Then you do that, and then you get it submitted again. It'd be another round of voting. So it's looks like it'd be kind of a cool contest.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, let's see. That wraps up the show for.
Well, I just wanted to mention one thing because it came out, and I guess it probably came out late for you guys last week. To have mentioned here, but they did announce the EVE Vegas pub crawl for this year, and the tickets went on sale last Monday. Apparently, it's only limited to like 200 to 220 people. So if you're coming to EVE Vegas, those tickets have gone on sale. They're back this year. It's all going to be right there in the Link area where the hotel is. It's going to start off with a private gathering at the Link Hotel pool area, which will only be open to the people that have tickets for it. It's then going to move to the what is it? The High Roller, the big giant Ferris wheel, which is at the back of the Link Promenade area, and then over to Virgil's Barbecue. So there's just those three positions. It's no travel to and from the hotel like in some of the previous years, and it's not going bar to bar to bar like a normal pub crawl, but it really does look like a good thing, especially if you're somebody who's bringing a non-EVE player. You get that High Roller experience built into it, which is nice from kind of that touristy perspective. I think it's like $89 a head too. So yeah, that got announced, and the tickets are now available.
Excellent. I know you're looking forward to it, Carneros.
I didn't sign up for the pub crawl this time. I'm going, of course, to EVE Vegas, and added extra days in the front and extra days on the back, and going to have a fantastic time. In fact, we decided our next San Diego EVE player meetup which is September 21st, that we're all going to talk about eVegas and put carpools together for people who want to drive out there, and who, help people who need to find a place to stay, or do you need some equipment moved for you while you fly out, and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to have a great time.
Oh, that's cool. So you're going to help people get there and kind of orient them when they do. Yeah.
We're getting so close too. I mean, it begins October 6th, but I mean, I know I'm rolling in, I think the 4th. A lot, and every year it seems people get there earlier and earlier. It used to be that you would get there earlier and kind of go and do touristy things. We showed up last year and there were so many people there, on Wednesday, that it was like, it basically just began party time.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. If you're going to go and say you're going to arrive on a Friday or Thursday, it just seems like all you're doing, Wednesday is looking at tweets of people having a good time that are already there. I guess it's the same for FanFest, but, you start getting that momentum up of like, yeah, I can't wait to get there.
But it is, it is a good destination for, again, if you're bringing a non-EVE player along with you, spouse, significant other, whatever. There are other things to go and see and do, before the actual EVE event starts. So it's once again, destination location, which is, which is nice. I've seen advertisements also for things like, Amsterdam and what, the same kind of thing. There's more going on there than just the straight up EVE experience.
Yeah, well, I imagine Reykjavik in Iceland is a destination to some people because it's more of a curious place, but I imagine there's not much to do after a few things. I don't know. Carneros lived there. I didn't.
If you're ever going out to EVE FanFest in Reykjavik, add extra days, especially beforehand, or on both ends. Add extra days and enjoy yourself. There's stuff to do.
Good. All right. Anything else we got? Cool. So we'll just like to thank Maliker, who subscribed, and the Inimical gave us 500 bits, and Wolfglen again tipping us $50 during the show. Always love to see that kind of support. And so we're really happy about that. I want to thank Archer and Pfeiffer for coming in and helping us understand a little bit more what's going on in the South. And of course to Carneros and Dirk for joining us after his power went out. And Killa B, thanks for showing up and jumping in and giving us some extra stuff. It's like bonus stuff. By the way, Dirk, when you wrote, I have no power, I took it metaphysically when you're like,
well, I have no power like that either, but
I
literally had no power.
Somebody cut your hair and you lost all your strength. But yeah, I would like to say also hello to Nasag, friend in France, and good luck to Lady Scarlet, who is doing the Spartan sprint or something along those lines, which is kind of brutal. And even now, we're still getting follows and stuff. So thank you guys very much for supporting the show. We know the Alliance tournament's on. We'll let you get to that. And we will see you next week on Talking in Stations.